Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our DNA webinar. And thank you for sharing your day with us. Also, a warm welcome to our friends on the North49 team. And Peter Braychuk, long-standing member of that team, will be presenting to us today on streamlining your accounts receivable processes. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Peter. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jerry, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. And as Jerry mentioned, I'm with North49. North49 is now part of a much larger organization. A couple of years ago, we were purchased by a company called Global Payments. So we're now part of that organization. And some of you may be familiar with that organization. We are as the name might imply, a payment processor that works globally. So we have offices all over the world. US, Canada, probably some of the bigger markets, but we are in many other different markets. Publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. So I think probably, if not the biggest, one of the biggest payment processors in the world. So that being said, North49 has gone from a relatively small organization of about 20 people to one with 25,000 people worldwide. So we've now got quite a bit more resource behind us to help us continue to develop our products and support our customers and our partners. And today we're going to talk about one of our product lines, which is AR automation. And we do so, there's a couple of different products in our portfolio who actually take care of this. The one we're going to talk about today works specifically with Sage 300 or Sage Intacct, if you happen to be in that camp. It allows you to let your customers pay and manage their accounts online, as well as being directly integrated into Sage 300 or Sage Intacct. So the reason we have products like this is because, and it's probably not going to come to any surprise to folks out there who struggle with this, is that collecting money is a time-consuming and laborious job. It takes a lot of time out of your day. A lot of people have multiple staff dedicated to doing just that thing. It involves a lot of manual effort. Because folks are slow to pay, it means that you don't get your cash right away. Oftentimes you're working with payment systems that are not connected or integrated into your Sage ERP, which means it opens up the door for a lot of insecure type transactions. And this is something that people don't think about a lot, is the potential liability that you may face by not having adequate security in place when you're handling customers' credit cards. Oh, I went the wrong way, pardon me. So we have a product called PayFabric. PayFabric is a payment processing software, and it's embedded in Sage 300. And we also use it in our customer portal to process payments that customers might initiate from that portal. And the beauty of this is it's integrated. Now, if you ever listen to a lot of the stuff that Sage is talking about, they're talking about I can't remember the terminology they use, but it sounds like a big scary thing. What we're doing is we're just integrating and automating some of the processes that you are doing manually. It's an incremental, iterative change in your process that saves you a ton of money and a ton of time and allows you to allocate your time elsewhere. And I know a lot of people struggle with resource allocation. They don't have enough people to do the work that needs to be done. Well, this is going to help you deal with that. So the top benefits of our system are: you get paid faster, you make it easier for customers to pay you, and that they tend to pay you much quicker. You reduce the time it takes for you to actually process customer payments. In some cases, there's no work for you to do because the customer has taken on that task, and the integration and automation in the system makes everything else automatic. By getting your cash in sooner, that means you now have quicker access to that cash. It means you can plan better for your business and help things grow. I mean, the faster you get cash in the door, the faster you can put that cash to work in your organization. Bunch of features that we bring to bear with these products. Credit card processing, obviously. Also something we refer to as e-check, because that's called ACH in the US, or it's called EFT in Canada. We do have the ability, or your customers, let's say, have the ability to allow you to store their encrypted credit card tokens so that you can use them over and over again without having to enter those card details every time. Same holds true if they're using the portal. They don't have to enter those card details every time. They'll just pick that stored card and have that transaction happen. And we bring a lot of visibility to the customer's account directly to them through this customer portal that we're talking about. It allows them to check order statuses, to check payments, to check invoices, to look at a whole bunch of stuff. And we'll show you that live. I'll show you what that product looks like so you'll get a sense about the things that you can put into your customers' hands so that they can manage it for themselves. And again, offload that work from your staff and let your customers do it. And frankly, they want to do it. So you're just giving them something they want, and in the process, saving yourself a lot of time and money. PCI compliance is a term you've probably heard of before, and that refers to payment card industry. And the full and not really an acronym, abbreviation is PCI DSS, which is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards, I believe. Is that what that stands for? So that's what we have to adhere to make sure that all credit card transactions and EFT transactions are processed securely to the highest levels of security. And that's what we do as a payment processing company. That's on us. We take that burden off of you, we take it on, and the way we build our software means that you don't have to worry about it because we're dealing with it. And because we are part of probably the largest payment processing company in the world, we are in a great position to offer you the best rates out there. So you're going to save time, you're going to save money on your processing rates. You may even find you save enough money on your processing rates to pay for the software. And all of this is integrated into Sage, and it's automated so that it takes a lot of that burden right off of your hands or off of your staff's hands. Now, the North49 customer portal, we're going to show you this directly, and you can see what this does. But this is just what allows your customers to go on and self-serve and do the things that they want to do through this secure online portal. We even have something very simple. It's just a link you put on your invoice document. If you were to send it out of Sage, you can have a link on it that says click here to pay, and it's going to take them to a screen that allows them to pay that invoice document. And I'll show you how that works. Excuse me. You have the ability to expose whatever documents that exist inside of Sage to your customers. And again, I'll show you there's a long list in Sage 300 of different documents that live inside of Sage 300. You get to pick and choose which of those you want to expose to your customers so that they can manage that themselves. There's even a quick order entry form on here. So, I mean, this came to fruition early on in the pandemic when, folks were panicking about how am I going to deal with my customers? I need to get online and fast. Now, North49 is also the publisher of a product called Webtelligence. It's an integrated web store to Sage 300. So we always had the ability to get folks online. The fast part was the tricky one because it takes time to build a web store. We can deploy this customer portal in a matter of a few hours. So that got the folks back up and in business in a very quick manner, allowing them to take orders from their customers and allowing their customers to pay them online any time of the day or night. We seamlessly integrate into Sage. So any transaction that gets done on the portal automatically gets settled inside of Sage. And that holds true when you're using PayFabric within Sage 300 as well. We have our stuff built right into the Sage screen so that you can process a transaction within Sage and it will be settled automatically within Sage when you do that process there. And again, all in our secure PCI compliant interfaces. So with that, let's take a quick look and see what this looks like. So bear with me for a second here while I start with this guy. Sorry, one more little thing I want to do here. Where's my screen? That's the screen there. I want to make sure I'm on the right one. And hopefully that'll become obvious in a second here. So let's talk about the click to pay. So I've just mocked up what might be an invoice here that's coming out of Sage, let's say, and then we embedded a link on here. And you can see from that link that we're directing it to our portal URL. And then in your case, that's going to be a subdomain of whatever your current domain is. So your customers will see it's going to your domain, not to some strange domain like the one that's listed here. And then what we do is we feed it the customer number, that's that 1600, and the invoice number. And all the customer has to do in that case is click on that, and then it's going to pop up a screen that allows them to pay that invoice. So a couple of points to make here. You saw a little delay there when we popped in, first of all, that bit of information, slight delay. We went and read live from Sage, is that in fact an invoice for that customer, and is it still open to pay? And if all those things are true, then we fill in all the rest of this information. I should also say that we do consume a Sage user license. So in order to facilitate this process, we will need one user license for our exclusive use. So please do bear that in mind. You'll notice that this is an editable field right now. It doesn't have to be, that's your choice. You can turn that on or off at your discretion. Obviously, there's reasons that folks might want to allow folks to part pay invoices, but not everybody does. You don't want to have to deal with that 3-cent reconciliation that somebody short paid you by. So you can turn this on or off. And down here, this will determine the payment methods that you were prepared to accept for that customer. So for you guys, it would be EFT or e-check. That works in both cases. So from a customer perspective, I've popped this up. Let's say I couldn't edit that at all. I was just going to pay the full amount outstanding. I just hit that pay invoice button, and this is where Pay Fabric pops in. Now we've now moved over to the Pay Fabric software because now we're accepting credit card information, and we never want to type that directly into Sage or directly into the customer portal. And let's see, let's call this Joe. So everything that I'm doing right here is in our secure Pay Fabric software. This is going into our secure vault system, not into the portal. You will never ever have this information, like the full card details, in your Sage or available to the portal. Now I'll talk about that a little bit more later. So when I click that pay button, we're now sending this transaction through Pay Fabric, and we will ideally get back a positive response telling us that we've got the money. It's going to give us this on-screen receipt that I can print if I want to. You have the option at this point, or in the setup, I guess, to send an email to the AR email address on that customer account, telling them or giving them this receipt by email form as well, with all this same information in it. You also have the option to get internal notifications. So we can send your team notifications through email and probably a distribution list that you set up. We can do it through Slack, so if you set up a Slack channel that deals with AR collections, or through Microsoft Teams. And again, if you set up a team that's dealing with this, you can be notified instantly by any of those methods that this payment was just made. And it'll tell you all the same information that's on here, who paid it, what they paid, how much they paid, and by what method. So if you happen to be going through a collection proceeding with somebody, you can be notified immediately when that payment has been made. Now, it also appends this receipt directly into an AR receipt batch that is there specifically for credit card payments. Or if it went by EFT, it would be for EFT payments. So the only thing left for you to do to finish that transaction and fully reconcile it is to post that batch, and you're done. So you can see all the work was done by the customer. All you had to do was post the batch perhaps after you review it, and you're done. You didn't have to do any of the matching of the invoice to the receipt. You didn't have to go out to your processor's virtual terminal and enter the card details in there, probably in some non-PCI compliant manner because you got it jotted down on a piece of paper or something, which is really not appropriate for PCI compliance. So anyway, all those things get handled here, and you've just offloaded that big burden of collecting that information from the customer and entering all that information and creating a receipt, assigning it to an invoice, posting it, doing all that stuff that can take 10 to 15 minutes per transaction. You know, if you do that 100 times a month, well, the software has been paid for probably by mid-month. So anyway, that's just the click to pay part. There's also a full portal in behind here should you choose to deploy it. And we do have folks who get it just for this part, just to do the click to pay. And that just saves them a ton of time and effort and gets them paid faster. But the customer portal itself does have a full-on portal in behind it should you choose to deploy it or deploy parts of it. It's up to you. For those of you who are down in Eastern Canada, we do support French. So when you click that French toggle, we're going to change everything that we control to the French language. So all the headings and the buttons and the titles and all those kind of things we will change. I'm going to go English because I don't speak French. So a couple of things to point out on this page. So this part up here, that's yours to control. This will be whatever image you tell us to put there. Typically it's a logo, maybe some messaging because there's quite a bit of area here that you can deal with. So you just point us at that image, that's what's going to go up there. You also control this, that's the welcome message to your customers. Whatever you want that to be, it's simple text input on the admin side, that's what goes there. And the same as you might guess happens down here as well. Your address, email, website, phone number, all that kind of stuff you can put right down there as well. That's what you control to make it your portal. To get customers registered to use the portal, you can do it in a couple of different ways. If you want to control it yourself, you can. So that means that you'll be on the admin side in the back end, you'll create a user, You'll send them an email telling them what their credentials are, asking them to change their password. You know, the usual deal when you're setting up a password for somebody. But that does represent the most amount of work for your staff. What you might want to do, and what I think most of our customers do, is allow their customers to self-register.
Excuse me.
So they'll give themselves a username, and you can have more than one user on any AR customer account. So they call themselves whatever they want. They'll need to know their AR account number in Sage. And we do ask a verification question. And there's 5 different questions that you can choose from to select one that you want them to answer correctly. And I'll show you what those are when I give you a quick look in the back end. And the reason we do that is because once they fill in all of this stuff and they hit register, if they answer that question correctly, we can give them immediate access. And if you do choose to do that, you can also opt to send, again, an email to that AR email address telling them you've given this user access to their account. And for whatever reason, if they say, nope, shut them down, it's a simple click of a mouse to turn that user off. So that's the second method. The third method is you still allow them to self-register, but you don't give them immediate access. You wait in the back end, and you will find anybody who's waiting for authorization. You might just want to verify they are who they say they are, and then you can let them in. So either you do it all, they do it all, or they register and you authorize them to have access. So those kind of 3 methods, or 2.5. So that's all of this stuff on here. Once they have their credentials and they want to log in, a couple of things can happen. I'm going to talk about all the options that are available. Well, maybe not all of them, but some of the options that are available that you can deploy or not, up to you. So the first one, this is a message designed specifically for Dr. Dan. That's who we logged in as, is Dr. Dan. That's who he is inside of Sage. That's here. So let me just show you that. In the customer record, there is a tab called Comments, and you're probably familiar with that. And under that Comments tab, we designated one called Web. And here's that message we just popped up. So what happened here is when we logged in, based on my user credentials, we went, checked that customer account, and is there a message that's titled Web? And if there is, pop it up on the screen. So this is something we need to communicate directly with Dr. Dan. I don't know, maybe it's a special promo just for you, or it's your birthday, happy birthday, whatever. Something that's specific to Dr. Dan that you need to communicate to him, and you can do so in this method. Now, when he clicks OK, what happens is, let's move away and back to that, we changed it to acknowledge, so we know he's seen it. So you can keep a string of messages going in here for Dr. Dan, or any customer for that matter, with that methodology of choosing that web type. And if you wanted to turn that back on again, you just switch it to web, and it's going to pop up again, or create a new message for him to see next time, that type of thing. This second one that popped up here, we call that a broadcast, and that goes to every customer that logs in. So this is usually something like, as you see here, new office hours, or maybe it's holiday hours, or maybe it's new terms of service, or whatever. Something you need everybody to know about. And once they click OK, that shuts down, and then they don't see it again as they're navigating through the portal itself. So the portal has 3 levels of subscription. First of all, the baseline, we call it the customer portal. That's basically the baseline you have to have regardless. It includes the account activity, the view transactions, the view orders, and the contact us. The first optional add-on, which is purchased 99% of the time when someone gets the portal, is the online payments, and that includes these 3 icons. And then the third optional add-on is the quick order entry, and that's the last bit. And so that gets used a lot less from folks. I mean, it can be used for internal sales staff sometimes, for customer service staff. It doesn't get exposed to customers all that much, but it can. I mean, it has some cool functionality, and I'll talk about that in a second. So just to give you a quick look at what's going on inside of each of these, the account activity really is just summary level information about my account. Here's my last few payments. Here's my last few invoices, my outstanding balance, what are my terms, that kind of stuff, right? So just a snapshot of the account. Now, I don't know if this was obvious from my earlier comment about a live read of data from Sage, but once we get, now the way we communicate using that Sage user license is with a web service we call Connect. And that just sits on your Sage server and waits for the portal to send it a question that then interrogates Sage and sends us back the answer. So Once that's installed and we get things configured properly, we have access to the entire history inside of Sage for that customer. So if you've got 10 years worth of history, we can see 10 years worth of documents through this interface. And all of these document types that exist within accounts receivable. Now, you don't have to show all of these. You can turn these on and off. So if you don't actually do refunds, or if you don't charge interest, or don't have unapplied cash, you turn them off. They don't appear here as options. They don't appear on this list. But the customer can filter down to just those document types they're interested in looking at. And we support both accounts receivable invoices within Sage. We also support the order entry invoices within Sage. So you can see they're slightly different in their layouts and the types of data that are available. There's typically no quantities in an AR item, but there are obviously in order entry items. So they can reprint these. They can save them to a PDF. Now, clearly that's going to be the image you told us to put up there. That's what's going to show up there. But this is the layout that they can get to have a reprint of that invoice document. And that holds true for any of these document types that are in here that you want to expose. Probably the biggest reason that folks get the portal is so they can facilitate online payments from their customers, allowing them to pay them whenever it's convenient for them. You don't have to be in the office to accept a payment. And they can, multi-select the ones they want to pay. They can select them all and just pay all outstanding. Again, turn that part on and off where that's editable. Actually, that just shows that if you click on the line, I can see the line items in each of these invoice documents that I'm trying to pay. And when I hit that Make Payment button, it exposes some additional functionality that's available. So namely, that stored card, that encrypted credit card token that you can store to stay on the right side of PCI compliance. Your customer can choose when they go to make a payment to store that and save it for future use. And once they do that, next time they want to use it, they just click that, they hit the Make Pay button, and the next thing they see on the screen is their receipt. They don't have to enter those card details. The e-check or ACH, slightly different, not a major difference, but we ask them what kind of account it is, the account number, the routing number, all that good stuff, so that we can do that direct bank transfer as opposed to a credit card transaction. And again, all the same stuff we talked about through the click to pay will happen if you've turned those things on. At a baseline, we're going to append that receipt into that AR receipt batch, or we're going to open a new one if there's not one open for us to append to. And then all the notifications that you've decided to get internally or sending to the customer, those will all happen as well. There are options in Sage 300 to accept prepayments in a few different ways. So number one, you can just take an unallocated cash payment on account. What that basically means is they're going to send you money and you're going to apply it to something in the future. So that's one way to do it. Another way is you can take a prepayment on an order and then allow them to prepay an order, because there's some folks that are like, they might be in a custom shop or something and I'm not going to do anything until you pay me. You can get a prepayment on an order. You can also do it if you're using the quote system, and some folks do, not a lot, but we can actually take a prepayment on a quote as well. So all those methods to accept a prepayment from a customer are available, and it'll be a process just like you saw with that invoice payment that we did through Click to Pay. You can enter your card details or use that stored card token or whatever the case may be, and it's going to take care of that process for you. This part here just tells the customer which of their cards they've decided to store for future use, and they can select which one is the default, and they can delete them, that type of thing. The view orders, some interesting stuff can happen here, and it can be used in conjunction with our order entry screen here. And let me just talk about this for a second. So right now, we're looking at orders. We can also look at this by item. So here's all the stuff that I'm waiting for you to send to me, and here's the orders they exist on. And here's all the orders that are in the system, and here's the line items on those orders. Now we can see this one is sitting in here on hold. This is one I did a while ago, and I made an order from the order entry screen here, and we set the system up to say when an order comes in this way, put it on hold so that somebody internally can review this before we go to fulfillment. That's your option. You can make that ready to fulfill. You can put it on hold. Those are settings that you get to decide how you want that to work. So this status here, we're just figuring this out based upon what we see going on in Sage. Remember, we're looking live at the data. So we can tell that this one's, it's in, but it hasn't been processed yet. Here's one that's been invoiced. When it's been invoiced, you click on that icon, and then we're going to allow you to see the invoice. And if I want to click on that invoice, I can, and get that same display we saw earlier. If you're storing the tracking number from whatever carrier you're using, that would go in there. You've got a situation here where one has been shipped but not invoiced. So we're going to show you the shipment number on that drill down, much like we were going to show you that invoice. Another interesting thing in here, so we do support all of the order types within Sage. So let's just look at quotes for a second. So here's how you might use it, maybe in conjunction with that order entry screen. So there's an option to submit an order or a quote. So a request for a quote. Now let's say we're going to do the quote thing. So a customer goes on there, he creates a quote that he'd like to get verified or approved. Once he submits it, it's going to go up into Sage in awaiting approval status. Somebody internally is going to review that quote, add in anything that needs to be added, make sure they didn't do something foolish like put in 100 when they meant 10 or something like that. But anyway, once it goes through that vetting process, it gets to an approved status and it'll sit in here and approved. So let's say the customer entered it first of all, it's that waiting approval, you vetted it, then it came to an approved status. Once it's in that status, they can turn that into an active order within Sage from that quote automatically with this button right here. So once they've had a look at that, they see all the line items that are on that order. If they want to see the completed quote that's been approved with all the taxes and shipping and everything on it, they can see that, and then they can turn that into an active order. So that's kind of a cool feature. Now, another way you might use this is you may have just your internal staff creating quotes, and they'll sit on the portal in this approved status right from the start, and the customer can review it and then turn it into an order if they want to do that. If you want to use this order entry screen, then I'll just show you kind of how this works. So number one, I've logged in as Dr. Dan, so we know who he is. We know what his terms are. We know if you've set him up in a specific price list, if he's got a special sale code, it's what his discount is. All the price lists within Sage we do support, and specifically what you've set up for that customer. So when he sees a price in here, he's going to see his price. So he can give us a PO number. Oh, incidentally, we do know all his ship to locations. We can get him to add a new one if you want to. He can provide us with some instructions here. Oh, and incidentally, this works on a mobile device just as well as it does on a large screen. So you'll notice we changed the menu up here to that fold-out menu. We notice that the add item is persistent on the bottom of that screen regardless of the device. So it's always there to add items to. So we didn't just shrink down the screen, we actually reformatted it to be useful on a mobile device. And that holds true for any of these screens that I was looking at. So I'm a customer, let's say, and I wanted to go and place an order. And remember, well, I guess I didn't stress this earlier, we don't have any data on the portal. We're reading it live from Sage. So when I want to look for something, I need to give myself some data to go on. So let's say I wanted to buy a calculator. I need to type in at least 3 characters of the item number or the item description. If you're familiar with inventory control, there's 4 additional item information lines on that record. We also search those fields. If you happen to be maintaining the customer item number, we will also search that field. So 3 characters in any of those fields we're going to look for. So you can either hit the enter key or hit that finder. We just went to Sage and brought back everything that satisfied what I just typed in there. And if I was to keep typing, it would keep filtering. So let's say I want to buy that calculator. That just pops onto that line item and I'm ready to go. Now, this works great for somebody who knows what they're looking for, either by its description or by its item number. Great for a stock replenishment order, something like that, right? Somebody could do this entirely keyboard driven, just pound in an order and get back to work real quick. But there might be those times when folks aren't 100% familiar with what it is they want to buy. So if you activate this in the admin side of things, we can display additional information. I got to remember which one it was. Was it that guy? So now I can display images. Actually, let me find a better one. I know there's one in here that's got a bit more information and I can never remember which one it is. Is it that guy? And I got it wrong again. Anyway, so you can have multiple images. So you'd have a scroll bar here. I talked about those 4 additional item information lines. That's what we displayed here. If we had multiple units of measure, I would have a drop down here to tell me I want to buy this in eaches or in crates or in skids or whatever I'm buying it by, and I can add that to my order. So you notice down here, I've got place order or place quote. In my mind, you're probably going to use one or the other. I can't imagine a situation where you use both. I could be wrong, but it's probably one or the other. So if I have this in place order, I can have that order go in on hold till somebody reviews it, or I can come in ready to fulfill. The place quote, it's just going to go into Sage as a quote. Somebody's going to review that. So those are the different options you have for doing the order entry side of things. And again, it's just a quick order entry pad. It's great for guys who are familiar with what they want to buy. It's not a web store. You know, they don't go cruising around looking at pretty pictures of everything. They got to have some idea about what it is they want to buy. So this is a quick and easy way for folks to get that order into the system and take some strain off of your staff. Now, again, you can have your staff use this as well. So if you think about it, we consume one Sage user license. We could have 500 customers and 20 staff using this. Only ever consume that one Sage user license. There is a salesperson login here, and I don't want that. And the difference between that and what we just looked at is the first thing we ask is what customer. So once I type in the customer number or the customer name, then it's going to let me do things on behalf of Dr. Dan. So I can see the same stuff that Dr. Dan saw. And I can place orders on his behalf, or I can take payments, or I can do any of that stuff. Some people use this just for their staff to do orders and things of that nature as well. So if you don't even have to expose this to your customers, just use it internally. Kind of a handy way that you might avoid Sage user licensing if this does the things that you want those customer service or sales staff to do without having to give them an entire Sage user license and have access to that whole system. So that's the customer facing side of things. How was my time? Doing pretty well? I think so. Let me show you just quickly what some of the back end stuff is that you will have access to and can control. So first of all, when you log in, you will get this dashboard. This tells you how much money you're collecting on your portal by these time frames. How many people are using it, or how many payments you're getting, and for what dollar amount. This clues us in if there was an issue when we took a payment but we couldn't insert it into Sage. It's pretty rare that would happen, but it is possible, so we just need to let you know. So oftentimes, or most of the time, what would happen if there's a disconnect is because that connect component I talked about got switched off. Maybe you just did an upgrade, or there was a power outage and it didn't get turned back on or something. It's dead simple to turn it on again. You click a button and it's back up and running again. So that's what that's all about. It just alerts you that there's receipts that you've taken. We've taken the money, it's in your bank, but we haven't finished that transaction in Sage yet. This is that broadcast message we spoke about that goes out to everybody where you set it up. This is if you want to control all the users, you'll do so from here. So like we saw for the customer registering, except now you have the option to create the type of user you want to create. Whether it's the merchant, that's right now the one we're looking at, so that's you. There's the salesperson, the one we just had a quick look at there. You can set them up as well, or the user, which is the main one that we were just looking at. And so you'll do that all from here. If you chose the option where they you allow them to register but not give them immediate access, you just filter by the needs approval. Anybody got a status of needs approval is going to pop up. You can review them one by one, turn them on. If a customer got back to you and said, I've got a staff member just left, please deactivate them. There you go, you shut them down right there. Or actually, it's probably that one, inactive right there. And you can see there's lots of great filter capabilities. So you can always find somebody by any of these criteria in your list of users. We do track all of the payments that are made through the portal. So basically, if a payment has been made or has been attempted to have been made through the portal, it's going to show up here. So here's the one I did this morning, or sorry, this afternoon, and this tells me it's been inserted into Sage, and here's all the auth codes and all that stuff. This is that one I started that ACH process but didn't finish it. So it's telling me that somebody started it, but they never finished that process. They bailed out. With PayFabric, you also process within Sage 300. So basically, they have, or we have, our own merchant portal for that side as well. So it's going to include all transactions that you did within Sage and all transactions that were done on the portal itself. Excuse me. Portal settings, just a few things to point out in here. You can turn your portal on and off. Oh, if you want to control which customers have access to the portal, there is a flag in that AR record. I think it's a checkbox that says allow web store shopping. Use that flag, turn this on, only those folks will have access to the portal. Here are those 5 skill testing questions we spoke about. We've set it up for last invoice number. You could select any one of these that they would have to answer correctly in order to gain access to the portal. That's the logo you just point us at. Your welcome message, your address, all that simple stuff is done right there. Very easy for you to maintain that. Usually you just set it up one time, unless you wanted to change this periodically with some different messaging. This is where, first of all, your subscription will control largely which of these functions is even available. But even beyond that, you can control this. So if you didn't want to do the click to pay, for instance, you turn it off. You don't want to do pop-up notices, you turn them off. Those kind of things are easy to control. We spoke about the ability to limit the document types that are going to display within that list of view transactions. Here's where you turn those off. And this is where you tell us what your domain name you want that to be. Pretty simple. And most of this stuff, it's all set up. Our team is going to take you through it and take care of it for you and run you through what they all mean. I don't spend a lot of time on this. It gets a little bit into the weeds. One thing I do like to talk about is the notifications. So these are internal notifications coming to you. So for instance, we talked about that connect component. If that gets turned off and somebody tries to access the portal, we're going to know about it because we can't connect. And so we're going to send somebody a message internally in your organization to tell them, we can't connect, there's a problem, please go turn on connect or check it and make sure it's turned on. So who do we tell and how do we tell them? Email, by Slack, or by Microsoft Teams, and they'll get that instant notification that there's an issue connecting. So here's where you turn those on and off. The same holds true on the AR side of things. We talked about a couple of these, a new user register, we talked about payment received, we talked about, you can also get one on an incomplete transaction. So that EFT transaction I started but didn't finish, you can be notified that somebody started that but didn't finish. And again, by what method do you want to be notified? Same holds true for order entry. You know, it's going to end up in the order entry regardless, but you might want to tip somebody off that this order is coming in so they can go and give somebody a boot and make it go faster if it's a big customer or a big order or something like that. So you can get notified internally for those things as well. We had that contact us form. This is just, who do we tell? What do you want the immediate response to be back to them? Like we normally get back to you within 24 hours or whatever that might be. And these are the external notifications that you can go by email to customers. We talked about the new user. We talked about a payment. You can also get a order confirmation email to them as well. They'll get an on-screen verification just like the receipt from the payment, but you can also send it to them by email. So that pretty much tells you what the portal is all about. Let me just pop back to my screen here and finish off with a couple of different points here. Now, Jerry, I don't know if there have been any questions coming in at all. If there are, please feel free to just let me know about it, and I'll do my best to answer them. If not, we can address them at any time after this.
Sounds great. Thanks, Pete.
Okay. We talked a little bit about who North49 is. We've been around in the Sage community for a long time. We've got a number of products that we built over the years, and in fact, a lot of them are now built directly into the Sage product that you're using today. We sold them to Sage many years ago and actually helped them write them into the Sage source code. And we talked about our customer portal, we talked about web intelligence. That's the only products that we have left that we still service and sell to the Sage community through the Sage Partner Network. And I did mention we are owned by Global Payments, a New York Stock Exchange traded company. They're quite a big deal. Asked about the questions already, so if there's anything coming in, Jerry, just fire them at me. But from a contact perspective, your best point of contact would be Jerry, who's hosting the call for us. There's his contact information there. If there's any questions that he has, he'll get them to me. If you're looking to expose this to some of your internal folks as well, let us know. We're happy to have a conversation, speak to your specific situation, and make sure that your questions get answered.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete, for a very comprehensive demo. to our attendees. Should any questions come up in the future, please share those with us, either myself or Mariam, your other DNA account manager for Sage 300, and we'll respond promptly to you or connect you to Pete for an answer. Thanks everyone for your time today. We appreciate your attendance and look forward to working with you on this in the future.